afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Good, Better, Best. We are going to spend the next hour together, and so I want to go ahead and get started. Please use the QR code or the link that I placed in the chat to sign in. This session is eligible for sketches, so I want to make sure that you get it. We will be providing you with a link to the slides, Natalie, so you will get those at the end of today's session. I will place it in the chat, plus they will make them available for you in the portal that they're housing all of our sessions as well. So you will get all of these slides that we're going through on today. So as we get started, let me just introduce myself. I am Nekeya Irby. I'm one of the educational improvement consultants here at R.E.S.T. And I have not been at R.E.S.T for 27 years, but I've been in education for 27 years, and I've been at R.E.S.T for the last 6 years. So it's been my pleasure to be able to work throughout the county. And so I know many of you are coming from various districts all over, and I want to know who's in the room today. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like for you to place in the chat, introduce yourself, give me your name, which district you're from, and how many years have you been in education? So if we could take a moment and allow folks to do that, that would be great. That QR code is still on the screen. That one that you see is the sign in for your sketches. So please make sure that you use that or the link that's in the chat. As I see folks coming in and introducing themselves, wonderful. I see someone from Summit Academy. We also have folks joining us from Wyandotte, Riverview, Trenton, Van Buren, Taylor. Excellent. Grosse Point. Please continue to put that in there. I just love to see where folks are coming from. Plus, I want to see, if you don't mind putting the years, I'd love to see that as well. I think our collective genius is some of the best learning that we can do. I don't think anything I'm going to share with you all today is new information. But if you're like me, what tends to happen is we have been in education for a while and we may not be practicing all of the things that we are responsible for preaching. So today will be a review to some. It may be some new information for folks if you haven't been on this journey long, but I see I've got a lot of company out here stretching towards this 30-year mark. I see some folks already with 30 years. Beautiful. Looks like Teresa from Garden City, you've been in this for 26 years, so we're right together, Teresa. This is my 27th year. Melanie from DPSCD is going into her 30th year. Stephanie, 22, but she's not old. Me either, Stephanie. I don't claim to be old, but I definitely am experienced. That's what I like to think about when I think about my journey in education. So continue to put that information in the chat for me. And if we have any valuable information at the end of our session that I think needs to be communicated to all, I'll save that chat for us to have as well. But I love seeing where folks are coming from. And we've got a nice number of folks on the call with us today. So please continue to introduce yourself. While you're doing that, I just want to remind you that because we are virtual, I do need you to mute your mic when you're not talking. It'll allow for the background noise to not stop the rest of us from being able to hear. But you will have opportunities to come off of mute and talk during this session. I don't want to just be the only one talking. I want you all to talk back to me, which most of you are doing right now already through the chat, but I will love to hear some voices as well. So also remember that this is a session that is being recorded. So you might not have heard the recording when you came into the room, but this session is being recorded. It's going to be a part of a series of sessions that we're doing for this Summer Blitz month. So you'll be able to access this beyond today. And I, most of all, just want you all to enjoy yourselves, because if you didn't pick it because of the title, hopefully you know now that you're here. We're going to be talking about how do you stay well. Educator wellness is a huge deal, and I think we've not spent enough time practicing and going through the strategies that are necessary in order to get ourselves the proper rest that we need in order to be our very best. So those are our norms. Can I get anyone who may have a question to share that now? You can either come off mute if you have a question about our norms, or if you have a question for me, you can place it in the chat in regards to what we'll be expecting as far as our norms are for today. Right, want to give a little bit of wait time. I know it's hard sometimes when you are virtual, trying to make sure you find all of your reactions and the chat box. In that chat box right now, I placed that link to the QR code, which is our sketch sign in. So please do that. You will see that the QR code is on the screen right now. It's not going to be on the next slide. So I will put the link in the chat again if folks are joining us after we've moved on. Seeing no one either raise their hand, come off mute, or write in the chat, we're going to proceed because there aren't any questions about our norms. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, for today's session, what I'm looking forward to sharing with you all is really, what does it look like to truly operate in the principles of rest? So some of you may be fans of the Olympics like I am. We know that we're in the Olympic period right now. And I just enjoy so many of the Olympic events. But some of my favorites are track and field, swimming, and gymnastics. And so I'll make a few references throughout our session today to the Olympics, because I feel like as teachers, even though we're not considered athletes, we are all Olympians. There is a rigor and a amount of work and practice that we put into trying to do our very best in our roles. And I think there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn between what we do as educators and what we see the Olympians doing to make sure that they are their very best. So just to give you a very quick synopsis of what we'll be talking about today, the first thing we're doing, as you all that were here already saw, we were getting to know each other. That was our opening ceremony. I did go over those norms. You all are doing a beautiful job with that right now. I think everybody is muted. If you do have a question, please feel free to either raise your hand using the reactions or put it inside the chat. I'm going to try to be very mindful of watching the chat as well. But if I get carried away and someone has a question, feel free to come off of mute and let me know that you were trying to get my attention. We are totally committed to making sure that when you leave today's session, you don't have any doubt in your mind that you should be putting your wellness and your health first as you're trying to do this job as an educator. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not something that can be taken lightly. And so as I looked through the chat and saw how many years most of us have been in this, many of us have been in this for more than 10 years. I only saw a couple people put in that they were in it for less than 10 years. But please, if you haven't already shared with us, give us your name, tell us what district you're working with, and then tell us how long you have been working in education. And I just threw that sign in link in there again because we've got a couple folks still entering the room. And welcome, welcome. We are happy to have you here. Please make sure you do sign in. That is the only way you're going to be able to get your sketches. We have to have that sign in link completed, and then there will be one at the end of our session as well. So as we finish up with our opening ceremony, the first section we're going to move into is reflection. I used an acronym for REST. And so that R stands for reflection. We're going to talk about what that looks like. Exercises, the E. Self-care is the S, and tenacity is the T. Tenacity is something that I think most of us have not spent enough time really looking at how we are diligent in what we do. I love being an educator and I love talking to people who are non-educators because I feel like there's a false sense of what we do going around in our non-educational worlds. And we are so prepared in trying to make sure that our children get the very best that sometimes we put on that false persona as if we don't need rest or we don't need to be, putting ourselves first as well. And so I wanted to make sure that today's session gives you some principles of what does it look like to rest, and then how do you make sure that you're getting sufficient rest so that you are able to be your very best, right? So please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. This is our short agenda for the day, and we're going to get into it. I shared earlier before some of you came into the room, all of these slides are going to be available to you. I'm going to make them available through a link at the end of today's session, and then you will also be able to access them as a part of the recording that we're doing as well. So before we get into our first principle of rest, I want to do a quick check-in. So you're going to have a poll show up on your screen, and you should see a question. Actually, there's 3 questions. And what you're going to do is you're going to answer those questions with one of the following: good, better, or best. As you are doing the poll, I can see who is completing it, not by name, but just by number. So it is anonymous. I want you to rate your teaching performance last year. That's the first question. The second question is your ability to balance your personal work life, your work personal life. What do you think? Is it good, better, or best? And then there's a third question that says, how would you describe your summertime away from work? Was it good? Could it have been better? Or do you think it was the best? Now, I know there are people in the room, more than likely, because this used to be my lot as well as a teacher. Sometimes I didn't give myself a summer off, which meant that I was working in some type of summer school program or credit recovery or doing some type of work still as it was during the school year. So I want you to be honest because, as I said, it's an anonymous poll. We're about 65% completed now. So the others who haven't had a chance yet, please go ahead and respond. Number 1, how would you describe your teaching performance last year? Would you say it was good, better, or the best? Number 2, your ability to balance your work personal life. Was it good, better, or the best? And number 3, your summertime away from work. So were you able to, truly do those things that you need to do in order to rest? Constance, you're not seeing the poll. It is launched. We got about 82% here. I don't know if you're using a computer or a phone, Constance. You may have to close out a window if you're seeing just the slides and not the poll. Because it is still launched. I have not closed it as of yet. We've got about 83% of you that have responded to the poll. And so hopefully you're able to see it. If you close out some of your other windows, just make sure, hopefully you don't leave the Zoom. Hopefully you come back into it. If you do accidentally close yourself out, I'll let you back in.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Irby. I found it.
Okay.
I just didn't scroll over far enough.
Okay, wonderful, Constance. I'm glad you were able to get it. Thank you so much. All right, we've got about 87% that have responded. So there's only a few of you that have not. And some of you may be mobile, you may not be able to, but I'm going to give another 30 seconds just to try to make sure I get everybody's response, as many of you as possible. How would you rate your teaching performance last school year? That's the first question. Number 2, your ability to balance your work personal life. And number 3, your summertime away from work. Those
Mrs.
are the 3
Irby.
questions.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So, because I'm also on my phone and I saw that someone wasn't able to see it, I had to go to the bottom and I had to scroll all the way over where it says more, and then
Okay.
it'll show you if the poll is still there, it'll show it until you take it.
Thank you so much, Constance. So I think Leslie and Yvette, you were in the chat too, saying you were having trouble seeing the poll. Please try to follow those directions that Constance shared in your More tab. She said that's where she was able to find it. So hopefully you'll be able to find it there. If not, we're going to still give you an opportunity to answer. I just wanted it to be anonymous for the whole group because I didn't want to put everybody's own opinion out in the streets for everybody to see. Because this is really a self-reflection, but it is a quick check in for me too as the presenter. And I'm gonna close the poll in about 10 seconds. We already have 95% there. Excellent, Leslie. I'm glad you found it. So only two folks that didn't get a chance to do it. And we're counting it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Outstanding. You all did a beautiful job. I know everybody is at least reflecting on the questions, even if you didn't get an opportunity to answer. But I'm going to share the results with the group. And remember, it's anonymous, so we don't know who said what, but I needed this information as your facilitator today. And I believe you all need this information too, because I want you to know you're not in this practice of education alone in how you feel, how you're operating, and we all have an opportunity to get so much better at what it is that we do. And this is how we're going to be able to do it by looking at some data and figuring out what adjustments do we need to make. So hopefully you can see the results on your screen. But for number 1, we had 25% of you, only 10 out of the 40, felt like your teaching performance last year was good. 55% of you said it was much better. It was better. You felt like that last school year was better probably than the last, or maybe the last 20 or the last 15, however long you've been doing this. And then there were only 20% of us, 8, who felt like last school year, my teaching performance was its best. Okay. So that's what our poll said for number 1. For number 2, your ability to balance your work, personal life. And this is one that was very important to me as a facilitator to see what my audience was doing and how you felt. 50% of you felt like it was good. 43% said it was better, and only 8%, 3 of you, felt it was the best. And this is a big piece. And so that's why the majority of what we're going to talk about today is how do we work to make sure that we are having the best experience in our work and our personal life. And we're going to talk about that word balance too, because it's being overused. And I think there is something to be said about how we make sure that we are intentional in what it looks like for wholeness. Because the balance sometimes makes us get off kilter. We're not necessarily steady. And I know if you're of my age, someone tells me to stand on one foot, I can do it for a moment, but I can't do it as long as I used to when I was younger. And so that balance has something to say about how we actually are performing as we progress through the years in education. And then this last one, we were split kind of like a third. 35% felt like their summertime away from work was good, 33% felt like it was better, and 33% felt like it was the best. This summertime away from work, if you were guilty of the things that I used to do when I worked in the classroom and I would work all year long because I'd find summer programs, tutoring opportunities, just more opportunities to continue to work because I needed to make more money, then you might not have spent enough time away from work to truly do what we're going to find out today about, which is rest. So those were the results of our quick check-in. I thank you for participating, for letting us see what the results were among our group and allowing us to see that we weren't by ourselves. None of these categories had just one person. Even our smallest category that only had 3 people feel like their work life balance was the best, still was with someone else. And so I love that we were able to at least look at a little bit of data before we got into our content for today. And I want you all to take your own poll of yourself as we go throughout today's session, thinking about how do I move to what's considered the best. So there's this little idea of achieving a little bit of success every day. When we are doing our best, we are going to be feeling successful. So when you think about good, because good isn't bad, right? There wasn't any answer on the poll that you could have put to say it was bad, but good obviously was put as ranked a little lower. Good is what we say sometimes, even when we know that's not the truth. When someone says, "How you doing?" We might say, "Good, I'm good," knowing really I'm not doing that well. I could be better, right? So good to be good, you do have to be whole. You have to feel like I am in control of who I am. I'm able to make the decisions that I believe are, going to get me to the next rock, to the next level, whatever that may be. But the better, that's knowing that I have to be able to refresh, knowing what it feels like to be able to say, you know what, I can make myself do even better if I'm able to have some time for refreshment, if I'm able to have some time of rejuvenation. That better point is really a decision making point. What am I going to do to make sure that I can continue to get better? But then also, how am I going to make sure that I can move to what's best? And then look at what's best. To be your best, it requires rest. So, what are these principles? So, there's four for our acronym. And inside of each one of these, I've added a few strategies that we're going to be able to share together. And then I'm also going to provide a note catcher for you that will allow for you to kind of crowdsource our responses together beyond what I'm just sharing. So here are the four principles: reflection, exercise, self care, and tenacity. But with reflection, I have coupled recovery and rejuvenation, because that reflection is what allows for us to do that. With exercise, I put engagement and empathy. Probably didn't see that one coming, right? We all know that in order to get better at something and to really be our best, we've got to practice it, right? But that empathy piece, we're going to talk today about how does that come into play when we're thinking about being our very best. Self-care, in there, I've coupled sleep, strength, and stamina. So we're going to unpack those. And then tenacity, our T, that comes with testing and triumph. So those principles are the ones that we're going to unpack today. We're going to work together to try and make sure that we all understand what it means to rest so that we can be our very best. All right. So let's go to the R. Our first letter, R, stands for reflection. And in reflection, we have recovery and rejuvenation. Now, remember I told you we're going to talk about this balance piece. And I gave the example of me standing on one leg. You don't want to see it, not at this point. At this point in my life, I don't have the balance that I really would hope for. But what we're talking about with balance when it comes to being an educator and getting our rest, we're actually talking about establishing boundaries. So, as a part of you being able to capture some of these notes for yourself, but also for us to kind of crowdsource ideas in the room, I provided a note catcher. And I'm going to put the link inside of the chat. There is a QR code on the screen. And so, those of you who can access it with the QR code, you can go ahead and do that. Those who need to get it from the chat, please enter the chat and go ahead and pull up your note catcher. And that note catcher, if you notice when you get inside of it, several of us are already in there. We're inside that note catcher. People have started to open it up. So I see several icons in there now, which is awesome. In our note catcher, what we're going to do is start to talk about what does it look like to have balance, to establish these boundaries? What does it sound like? And what does it feel like? Because I want our strategies to be practical. I don't want anybody leaving and saying, well, those things were nice that she talked about, but they're not realistic. I don't know how that would even work in my life. I don't want that to be what you take away from this workshop. I want you to see in this workshop that these are all doable things. They're things that we can do. So that first piece, that balance, and we talk about when we do reflection, how many of you, if you want to use your reactions, button. Casey, I'm gonna drop the link in the chat again for the note catcher. You can use your raise hand reaction, or you can either put it inside the chat. How many of you engage in intentional reflection? Intentional reflection. Either you keep a journal or you might make notes at the end of your day. How many of you are engaging in reflection? Uh-oh, I see a thumbs down. Constance, I don't know. Did you want the thumbs down or were you saying you do engage?
No, you know what? I don't think I really do. Like by the end of the day, at least after work, I pretty much am ready to come home and wind down. I
Hmm.
don't think it's necessarily a reflection if I'm just like watching Sherlock, but and eating, I usually just kind of like zone out and fall asleep. So
Okay.
I don't know if I do a lot of reflection.
Okay, okay. I appreciate your honesty. Thank you for sharing that with the group. I'm not seeing a lot of hands up, so you may not be alone in that uh, concept. So reflection, that is a huge piece of how we get better, and it's really how we can become our best. And so even today's workshop, just you signing up was a point of reflection for each of you, because what you were saying was, I actually want to know, what is it? How do I get this rest? How do I take care of myself and focus on my own wellness? So, in order to be intentional with it, though, it means we're going to have to do something different, which means that if we're constantly working every day and we're not taking time to think about what went well, what could actually be better? How can I make sure this is best? Then we're not taking the time to reflect, which means that we won't be able to make the adjustments that may be necessary in order for us to stay whole. I see some folks talking to me in the chat, and I love this. Leslie says, reflection is my strength. Yes, I had to learn how to reflect. I too, Constance, did not from the beginning know what did it look like to reflect. And that's why I put that word intentional on there, because intentional reflection does cause me to pause. And then I'm a huge note taker anyway. So I want to actually write things down so that I can refer back to it. So I started keeping a journal. Peggy says, I reflect in the car on the way home. How can I improve my lesson plan? How can I be a better teacher for students? When will I go to bed tonight? I love that, Peggy. Thinking about, what did this day look like? And how can I improve upon it for the next day? Because each of us want to be our very best. And in order to do that, it means that we're going to have to reflect. Now, that first piece I put up there about balance, establishing boundaries, what this means is we have to let ourselves understand that it's okay for me to stop and take some reflection time. It's okay. You have permission to stop and reflect on what it is that you need to do. And what that might look like is, if I am reflecting at the end of a day, I'm going to spend 30 minutes after school reviewing what I did that day, how things went. I'm going to make whatever notes for adjustments that I want to make to determine whether I'm going to be better tomorrow or how I can get to my best. And then at the end of that 30 minutes, I'm done with that reflection. I'm done with that piece of what it is. I'm not going to spend all night going back over everything, especially if the lesson didn't go as well as I wanted it to, or if the students didn't take away what I was intending for that day. I'm not going to soak and sulk about it. I'm going to actually think about, what can I do better so that the next time I present this, or when I get ready to review this with my students on tomorrow, I'll have them being able to walk away with the understanding that I was intending for them to get. And I love how folks are already into the note catcher, and you're adding your own ideas about what it looks like and what it sounds like. Another example of what it might sound like to actually establish boundaries is when you are the person that's responsible for everything, walking into a new school year and saying, hey, I'm going to share that load. I'm not going to be the person that's the yes man for every single thing that comes up. I'm going to establish boundaries. I'm going to take on one, maybe two things, whatever your ability is to be able to take on anything else. Because I know that as a teacher, you're already drained with your regular duties. And so, as much as we know that other duties are essential, they do have to happen, it doesn't mean that one person has to be the person that takes on everything. So, establishing those boundaries may mean that I have to say no more. That's what that may mean. And when I'm saying no, it's not that I'm being a mean person or someone that doesn't care about doing something extra for the children. It's just that I realize that in order for me to have the balance that I need, in order to be the best teacher, I have to set limits on how much of my time I'm placing beyond my regular school day. It also might feel like I know what time I'm going to bed, right? Peggy said, when will I get to go to bed tonight? I've already established it. I've set a bedtime. I know it and I feel confident about it. I'm telling myself, this is all I can do for the day. I must get into bed at 10 o'clock, whatever the time is, 9 o'clock, whatever time you need so that you can get at least 7 hours. Guess what, folks? As adults, even teachers, and some of us have children. I tell my kids all the time they need to get at least 8 hours. But as teachers, we too, as adults, we need to get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. So if I'm an early start school, then I know that I can't stay up till midnight because then I'm not going to have enough time to get myself ready to get to work and be my very best. I need to be able to establish that boundary of my bedtime is you fill in the blank. And that's the time you have set for yourself. And that's what you do to make sure that you are getting the rest you need. The second point I want to lift out of here is evaluating regularly. So when you evaluate regularly, this might sound like you asking a trusted colleague to give you some feedback about something that's going on. I'm one of those educators that have been in this for 27 years. I've never been the type to want to just have my door closed and stay to myself. I've always been the one that wanted to be reflective with somebody else. I wanted to talk to people. I'm a huge talker. I wanted to know how others were thinking about something that I may have had an idea about. So that evaluating regularly may look like me taking down a question for myself, but then it may sound like me going to a trusted colleague and saying, hey, I was thinking about doing this. Can I get your feedback? Can I get your thoughts on what it is, that I'm saying here? Have you tried this before? All right. It also may be where you are evaluating how effectively did students comprehend the lesson for the day. And so that may look like exit tickets. It may look like students just responding in their own journals to what the lesson was for that day, whatever content you may teach, and having them give you even one word feedback, right? A lot of our kids, they don't have enough experience with writing. And as teachers, we shy away from it sometimes. But having an intentional writing prompt about how students actually receive the lesson for that day is another way for you to evaluate regularly. And you're evaluating your own teaching performance. That's what you're evaluating. Did the students get what it was that I intended for them to get from today's lesson? Agility. Now, this balance, evaluating agility, I took this from gymnastics, the sport. And if you saw the screen, I had one of our most famous gymnasts on there, Simone Biles. And Simone is loved and beholden because she is really the best at what she does. She's proven it time and time again. I think this year she's already up to 3 golds. Uh, all of this is not by happenstance for her. She's figured out how to be agile in her profession. So managing your time, that too, as educators, we have to figure that out. How do we manage our time? Because I have been guilty in the past of spending way too much time doing something and then not having enough time to do something else. And usually that something else was taking care of myself. So managing your time and adjusting, this might feel uncomfortable. That's right. The feeling may be uncomfortable for me to actually manage my time and adjust, because usually when I'm making those shifts and I'm actually making those decisions, which plays right back on setting those boundaries or whatever, I may feel like this doesn't feel right because I've got to get myself into the practice of making it a routine for me, a routine of wholeness and wellness. And in order to do that, that does mean I'm going to have to manage and adjust my time. I want to glance at what you guys have on the note catcher, what folks have been capturing here, because you've been doing a beautiful job. Thank you for helping us crowdsource some of these answers. Um, she says, it's a word we use in class. It's part of my evaluation plan. All right. I take the time to reflect and brainstorm what I could do better, improve, modify, or change. This is under looks like. And then making notes in the educational plan or the daily log of working with students while contemplating or cogitating on events of the day. And then setting boundaries. Beautiful, beautiful. What it sounds like is I can do X better next time. I did Y great during this lesson. To this point, to the point of not ruminating. Absolutely. Making sure that we're very specific in looking at what went well, what can be better, right? We have to build on that success because each of you are successful. You're successful at something. And so as you continue to hone in on your craft and mature in your own status as an educator, taking this reflection time will sound like you asking yourself, what can I do better? And I love this one. There's always tomorrow. Yes, we know that we may not get it right today, but thankfully we can stop, reflect, make an adjustment, and then try it out tomorrow. I can only do so much. Yes, understanding that don't put a load on yourself much heavier than what you're able to accomplish. Don't do that to yourself. And a lot of times we are doing it to ourselves because we haven't set those boundaries and we haven't managed our time appropriately. And then I can only control what I can control. I keep a sticker up that talks about what's in my locus of control. What is in my locus of control? What is it that I'm able to actually do and can make decisions about to make a change? And then what it feels like is, yes, problem solving, which is a relief. Yes, when I figured out how to do something better, that's a relief. And then it also, I like this one, it also can feel like there's not enough time to really rest. This is that adjustment piece, telling ourselves how much time am I devoting to this? How much time will I devote to this? But not second guessing ourselves on how much time we're devoting to that true reflection, which is going to lead us to the recovery. It's going to allow us to feel rejuvenated. Like I said, each and every one of you, when you came into today's session, you made a choice to choose wellness. So you're already making a choice for 1 hour out of this day. I want to be able to do something that's going to help me figure out how to rest. And so I give you all, I commend you all on being able to do that. Let's look at the E. The E is for exercise, engagement, and empathy. What does it look like to practice exercise? I don't know if there's other folks out there. I'm pretty sure there are because this is a very common issue that I have that I know many of my colleagues have as well. And that's trying to practice my exercise routine to the point where it is a routine and not something that I've just done for a few days and then I put it down and never go back. I had a colleague tell me, oh, I got the state of the art treadmill. It was, however many, reps per hour. It can do this, it can do that. And he said, and it's a rack for my clothes. That's what I use it for. Well, it's not what it was intended for. So it's not giving you the results that it could. So being able to exercise means that I have to be engaged. I have to actually tell myself and show myself what does it look like to be engaged in exercise. You're exercising right now, getting this information because the hope is you're not just getting it just for the sketches, but you're getting it so that you can figure out how to use it so that you can be better. That's the hope, right? Exercising mentally also goes back to the art of reflection. It also is how it looks to fill your toolbox. So, one of the things that you can do for mental exercise is what you all are doing right now, which is taking advantage of some professional learning, looking at strategies of what is it that I need to do in order to be whole. I have to have this mental exercise because this mental exercise is going to help me practice what it should look like throughout the year. And I know we don't always get an opportunity to engage in professional learning. And so, what I loved about the Summer Blitz program is we're trying to do it in 1 hour. We're trying to make sure you get everything you need in 1 hour because we know your time is short. But I was intentional in my choosing of this content to say, I want our educators to have an hour of what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like to actually rest? So filling your toolbox with those strategies so that you can do it. And then that active engagement, going into the routine of practice, practicing this exercise and having some shared ownership. That shared ownership means that I'm not taking everything on by myself, but I'm also looking for an accountability partner. That's what it might look like. I've hooked up with someone else that's also committed to being whole, that has said together we're going to hold each other accountable for making sure that we do this exercise. Every time I've tried to lose weight, when I've done it by myself, I've been unsuccessful. But every time I've had an accountability partner, I've been more than successful, and I've always lost more than I thought I could because my accountability partner and I, we kept each other in check. The same thing with your education practice. Have a trusted colleague, someone that you can go to, someone that you can lean on. They don't have to necessarily work in your district. They don't have to work in your school. Many of you are probably a part of social media networks and whatnot. You're making the time to connect with other educators that are like minded in this race of education where we're trying our best to stay well and to stay whole. And then the empathy piece, that's the piece I had to sneak in there because we forget how important it is to cultivate relationships and have a support system. That empathy means that I have enough heart that I'm not only concerned about myself being well, but I'm okay having an accountability partner, someone else that I'm looking out for, someone else that I've built a relationship with, that I'm able to say, hey, you're my support. I'm leaning on you, you lean on me. I put the picture of Sha'Carri Richardson up here. This is her first time into the Olympics, right? She won the gold in the American program on last year, and then this year she won the silver. But she talked about her team and how she continues to push herself further because of those that are around her, right? When these Olympians get out there, they're going for the gold. They want to be the best. And for us as educators, that's the same thing we want. We want to be the best. And in order for us to do that, we have to understand what does it take in order to be the best. It's going to take that reflection that we talked about with R, but it's also going to take this exercise. It's going to take this opportunity to look for real relationships that we can cultivate that will help us grow and sustain ourselves. What you all have captured in the note catcher are beautiful, beautiful pieces. I love that you have been able to really take a look at this feeling, the feeling part of it, right? Which is that empathy too. Empathy is really woven into all of this, but I love the statement that someone wrote where this feels like, what does this feel like when you exercise it? It feels like power. It feels like strength. It really does because you're able to actually see just how important it is to have this support system. I know for a fact that if I didn't have a support system, I wouldn't be able to stick with this profession for 27 years and still plan to work for many more, right? That's the only way that I'm able to make it because I know that I have people I can lean on. I know that I have the support out there for me. Let's look at the S, self care. Now, one could say the whole thing is about self care, but I wanted to specifically look at our S under these three items: strength, stamina, and sleep. Now, how do we get powerful? By exercising mentally and then cultivating those relationships, being actively engaged. But this strength also talks about how do I train myself to actually be the type of person that is always attentive to what do I need to do to be better. Not to the anxiety point, not to the point of burnout, but what do I need to do to truly have self-care? Because it's not selfish. Self-care is what you need. You can't be anybody's support if you don't have someone supporting you. You have to have someone there with you that's able to show you what that support looks like. Then you're able to take it and now you can support somebody else, right? But taking that time to breathe, intentional breathing is another exercise that I would recommend for everyone. And sometimes we do it and sometimes we don't. When we feel overwhelmed because we haven't put in the self care that we need to take the time to breathe. Taking that deep breath and exhaling lets us know that we're going to be all right. It allows us to focus. It brings back that mental aptitude that we need. It tells us that I'm still here. Breath is still in my body. I've just got to slow down for a minute and reflect on what actually is happening right now. What might I need to do to feel better so that I can be my best? Strength training and brain breaks. The brain breaks, we've started to use them as educators, right? With our children. We know the children need to have an opportunity to take a break. The children need to have an opportunity to rest their minds from whatever content that they're doing. We have to do the same thing as educators. I stopped using the word brain breaks for my own, and I started using them as joy breaks. Things that bring a smile to my face, things that warm my heart. Sometimes it's a letter from a student. Sometimes it's just a picture that someone has drawn. Sometimes it's a note I've written to myself. Sometimes it's an encouraging word that I may have posted up around my office, reminding me that I am great and that greatness is inside of me and that I can do wonderful things. So, what this self care looks like is being able to experience joy, being able to look at what are the factors that brought me to this point. Some of us have been in this race for a long time as educators. Some of us are in that first 10 years, that first decade of actually being an educator. How do you continue to get the fuel to go on? How do you strengthen yourself each and every day? You do that through the self care. And it does look like you making sure you have intentional brain breaks or intentional joy breaks that make time for the things that you love to do. All of you may love teaching, but there's something else you love to do that also brings a smile to your face. It may just be spending time with family. It may look like having a set time, maybe even a dinner time, right? Where my family and I sit down to eat together. That's one of my intentional breaks that I'm making sure that I have that's going to give me the strength that I need in order to move on to the next task. It also may even sound like music. Music is therapeutic. I love music. I have so many playlists on my phone. There's probably not a playlist that, not a moment that I haven't designed a playlist for. I've got a Saturday morning cleanup playlist. I've got an after work reflection jazz playlist. I've got so many different pieces because for me, that music piece is self care. It's actually feeding my soul. I love to hear the instruments. Sometimes I'm just listening to classical. Sometimes I'm listening to R&B. Sometimes I'm listening to gospel. Sometimes I'm listening to Christian. Whatever it is that brings that joy to you, that allows for you to take that mental break, do that. Do that. And what that's going to feel like is peace. That's what that's going to feel like. That self-care piece, when you do it, it feels like peace. It feels like, wow, I've been able to fill my cup so much today that my heart may be feeling warm and overwhelmed. That T, the last one. And for this one, I chose Diana Taurasi. And I don't know how many of you have followed her career in the WNBA, but Diana Taurasi is 42 years old. 42 years old as an Olympian. Now, most of those others that I was sharing with you, they're in their 20s, heading into their 30s or whatever. A lot of the Olympians you see are the individuals who are of the younger field. But Diana is outstanding because she's broken the mold. She's shown that there's no specific age that has to go along with being an Olympian. And the same thing with the educator. We already have a continuous improvement mindset as educators. We're always thinking about how can we continue to improve? How do we continue to get better? That tenacity is the ability to hang in there and be persistent. So when I see people like Diana Taurasi, even though I'm much older than she is, I still feel invigorated. It lets me know that as an Olympian, with all of the practice and all of the pursuits that they have to do. And she's continuing to be the best. I think last year, 2023, they said she ended up getting to her 10,000 points as a career goal. 10,000 points in her career, scoring. That's amazing. And then I also love the fact that she's a woman because we know we don't need to hold it back. We don't have to, sugarcoat it. We know the men's sports get lots more play than the women, but the women are fierce. The women are strong. They are tenacious and they are persistent. And we need to continue to take models like that from our Olympians, especially our women Olympians, to say, hey, how do I practice that in my own work? What does that look like? And then the testing piece, that's reducing that test anxiety and stress. How do I reduce it? Well, for one, what that might look like is I'm not making everything I do about an assessment. I want my students to learn not just to pass a test. I want them to learn because I want them to be productive citizens. I want them to be able to navigate this world. And that's going to go beyond test taking. That's going to be the ultimate life goal. And so that's what my focus is. So when I'm working with my students, when I'm teaching them, I'm helping them understand that this isn't just about a test. This is about who you are and you becoming the best version of yourself, gaining all the knowledge you have. I used to love in my classroom, I would tell my kids every year, we would start the school year off and we would end the school year this way. And I would say to them, guess what, gang? Everybody in here is going to know more than Miss Irby about this subject before you leave. And they would always look at me like, what? How's that possible? She old, we young, we can't, we can't know everything that she know. But I would tell them, because I'm gonna pour myself out into you, everything that I know. And guess what? Because you are so much younger than me, you still have capacity and room to learn even more. I'm going to learn from you. And so by the time you leave us at the end of this school year, I'm going to be able to high five you that all the things that I knew about whatever my content area is, you're going to know those same things because you're going to be prepared to go on to the next level. And I'm going to be whole enough to be able to be there with you, seeing you meet those challenges and goals. What it sounds like is celebrating the successes, whether they be great or whether they be small. I've had failure lessons. I've had lessons that did not go the way they were supposed to. And my success on that day was, well, thank goodness we made it through that. Now I need to do better the next go around. Success is what you make it. And you have to realize that you are successful as a teacher. When you're prepared, when you are planning and you're delivering at the best of your ability, you are a success. And so continue to be successful in everything you do, thinking about what it looks like to actually continue in this race as an educator, being your very best, making sure that you're taking the rest. So as we close out today, our final check-in, I want you guys in the chat. I want you in the chat. I hope you're able to put some comments in there for me. I want you to put in one thing that you took away from today's content about getting rest. Flood my chat. Go ahead. I want to see one thing that you took away from today in our content about rest. One thing that you took away. Oh, I'm loving this. Oh my gosh. Yes. I see. I need to take time every day to reflect, giving myself grace. Yes. Self-care is not selfish. Reflection is not rumination. Setting a bedtime. Yes, do it, Jesse. Grace. It's okay to take time for myself. I wanted to be able to remind you all of how important self-care is. As an educator, you have one of the hardest professions, but it's also one of the most rewarding. We don't make cars, right? We don't make inanimate objects. We get an opportunity to shape minds. How extraordinary is that? And so we should find pleasure and joy in just knowing what I've chosen to do in my profession is the one that feeds every other profession, even those that I don't even know have been invented yet. Because that's what our kids are doing now. They're coming up with stuff we couldn't even imagine. There's not even majors for that in colleges and universities. Our children are creating new professions because they had educators like us. They had people who believed in them. So, absolutely, you're worth it. Yes, make that time to reflect. Understand that you can say no, making sure that it's okay for you to take time for you. I want you all to continue to remember about intentional reflection. Intentional means it's not a fly by night, it's not something that, oh, I accidentally thought about this. No, no, no. Taking that intentional reflection time. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. I hope that you have gained some excellent information from this. I'm going to drop the link to the slides in the chat for you all so that you can have these slides and be able to utilize them, look back at them, encourage yourself with them. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. I know summer's not over for you all yet, but I thank you for taking this hour of time out to allow for yourself to actually have some principles of rest shared. Thank you for my crowdsourced note takers who made sure that you put that information in there for all of us to be able to take away. You'll have access to that note catcher. I just dropped the evaluation link and the link to the presentation in the chat. Please remember that you are your very best, but you have to take time to rest. Thank you all so much. I'm going to let Tina take us out.